Okay, so now we're going to add the waistband to our pants. All right, we've added the 5-front zipper. We've put in our set-in pockets, and then we've sewed up the rest of the pants. So we've added the back of it. Okay. So everything's been sewed: side seams, inseams, the crotch. All that's left to do is to put on the waistband. Okay. So the waistband we're going to do doesn't have any side seams or a center back. It's a continuous waistband. It has an underlap. All right. So if we unzip our fly front, you can see here is the shield. Okay. So when we drafted this, we drafted our waistband to come all the way to the end of the shield, and it comes all the way around, goes to the other end, and then finishes with the other side of the jean or the pant. Okay. So that is our waistband so far. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we can put our pant aside. So we've cut 2 of these, 2 waistbands. Okay, I'm going to mark the center back on both sides. Again, this is a muslin, so we want to have as many balanced lines as possible, because that will tell us if things are hanging correctly, fitting correctly in the place where they should be, and when we go to make alterations, it makes it easier because we know where the alterations need to be made. Okay, so we now have 2 of these. Okay, we have an outside waistband, right, and then the inside. So it's basically facing, okay, or facing for the waistband. What we're going to do is we're going to actually stay stitch the waist or the top of each of these waistbands. All right, and then on this inside, this is the one that will be against the body, we're going to stay stitch the bottom of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So now both sides of the waistband have been stay stitched. Okay, so now we're going to take the pant, we're going to unzip it. And we're going to pin it too. Okay, so here's my right side. We're going to put wrong sides together. I'm going to start at center front. And I have a notch here that goes to center front. Match that up. And I should have a 1/2 inch. If this is correctly, there should be a 1/2 inch seam allowance here that goes beyond our fly shield, which it does. So I'll start there. Match that up to center front. Good. Now this is where, once we get this stitch on, we can cut off the extra zipper that we don't need length. And I'm just going to keep going around. This one matches with that dart. And then side seam. And you should have a notch to every, on your waistband. It makes it much easier to put on if you have a notch for every dart and seam that you come across. But at the very least, you have a notch for center front, side seam, and center back. Okay, and here's center back. So far the waistband is matching up nicely. I just put 2 pins in to hold my center back seam open. And come around on this side. And then this is my center front here, and that should line right up. Yes, it does, with the edge of the pant front. There we go. Okay, so now we've pinned our waistband on, right sides together, all the way around. And we can go ahead and stitch this on. Okay. The facing part of the waistband, or the inside of it, we'll come back to after we get this stitched on. Alright, here we go. Now I have a little bit of ease in my pants, so that's what I'm going to put against my feed dogs. And it should ease it right in without any issue into the waistband. Okay, 1/2 inch. Here we go. Alright, we've now stitched on our waistband. Let's just check it real quick and see how that looks. Doesn't look bad. Okay, zipper. That works fine. So, let's go ahead and chop off our zipper tape. I'm just going to chop it right at the seam allowance. The rest of that. Alright, and now before I attach the rest of the waistband, what I'm going to do, let's open this up, is we're going to press this seam allowance up into the waistband. We'll make it a little easier just to do it now before. Stitch on the rest of the waistband. Okay. There we go. So another thing we want to do now is take this waistband, the inside of the waistband, all right? Figure out which way it's going on. That's the inside, so this is where this will be. Okay, let's make sure we're good. We are. So what we're going to do is take, this is the bottom edge of the waistband here. One of the reasons we stay stitch this is because we're going to press this up to the inside. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. And if you stay stitching will make it very easy to do. Or I would have. Okay. So there we go. Now pressed up the seam allowance to the inside of the waistband. So now we're going to put waistbands right sides together. And we're going to stitch them around the top. There we are. So let's go ahead and stitch this waistband all the way around on the top. There we go. Now, because this waistband is shaped, okay, it has a curve going around it. If we fold it over, it's going to be fighting itself. We want to pull in the other direction, so we're going to clip all the way around. And through the parts with less curve, you don't need so many clips. But when you start to get more clip or more curved area, you know, about every 5/8. So that's around side seams and around center back. That's where we're really going to need it. Right. You're going to clip right down to your stitching line, but not through it. Obviously, if you clip through it, then you're going to have to go back and re-stitch. Alright, that's flat there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to understitch. So we're going to fold or open our waistband like so, and we want the seam allowance pressed towards what will be the inside part of the waistband. Okay, that's it. So it's going to be facing it. Alright, so all the seam allowance is pressed this way. We're going to stitch nice and close to that seam, catching through the top of the facing part of the waistband, catching all that seam allowance. And make sure when you clip like this, these have a tendency to flip the other way, so you got to watch and check that that's not happening. Okay, and as you do it, also pull the waistband that's attached to the actual waist of the pant to the left, and pull the facing of the waistband to the right. That keeps any puckers or anything from folding over and getting stitched down. Again, this is a curve. Alright, and it kind of wants to pull itself together as you stitch. So by pulling it apart like so, you want to make sure it's got a nice clean finish where it comes together. And again, keep checking these things. I can see through the muslin, so I know if they're folding back or not. And I'll just use my finger to pull them forward if they are. And the thing that's hard about this is it's a circle, so you gotta keep adjusting with it. See how they're flipping the other way. Okay, we're almost to the end. Alright, there we go. So it is all stitched. Okay, here we are. Press this now back, and we should pull back about 1/16 of an inch of that outside or waistband with it. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we need to finish off the edges of our waistband, okay, here and here, okay. To do that, we're going to flip the waistband inside out. And we're going to, we'll just put a pin in it, hold it in place, and then we're going to stitch right up, okay? So right here, you can see this is my shield, okay? Here's the zipper, here's the fly shield, and we're just going to continue up, straight up with that. What we don't want to do is stitch like right next to the shield. We want to come out about 1/8 of an inch, because when you flip this right back, right side out, if we do it real close, this shield's going to get scrunched up in here, okay? Come out about 1/8 of an inch and stitch straight up, and the shield will sit in there no problem. And then the same thing on the opposite side, where it just finishes clean with the opening of the fly. Put a pin in. And again, we're just going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from the front, okay, of the pant, and go right up. Alright, here we are. This is the shield side, so let's do this first. Now you can always draw a line here if you need to. It's on the inside, so even if this is your fashion fabric, it wouldn't be an issue. I'm just going to eye it. Not always the best way to do it, but we'll try it anyways. Okay. That. On the side now too. Again, about 1/8 of an inch away. And now this 1/2 inch seam allowance we're going to trim back to 1/4. And right here, I'm going to angle it in, right where the waistband folds over to reduce some of that bulk, because we're going to have a point there. And we can't have a lot of seam allowance inside that point, or we won't get the point. It will be too bulky. Same thing on this side, trim away down to 1/4 and then angle out. Alright, so let's flip the waistband right side out. There we go. Take your point turner and push out the tip, the corner of your waistband there. There we go, that looks pretty, that looks very clean. See, it came out 1/8, and because it came out 1/8, it ends perfectly. Okay, and same thing on the other side. Flip that corner right in, and push it out. And again, that ended being very clean there as well. Okay, so let's just give that a quick press. One side. And this side as well. Okay, so let's talk about finishing. We have one step left, and that's finishing the waistband down, the inside of the waistband to the garment on the inside. Okay, do this one of two ways. You can do it by hand, where you do a hidden slip stitch, catching, you travel the thread through the crease here, and you would catch it to the pant. But you want to catch it above your stitching. You don't want to catch it here on the pant because the stitches would show through. Okay, or you can do what they call stitching in the ditch. That means you'd stitch right in this seam here where the waistband attaches to the actual pant. You'd stitch right in there, and as you stitch, you would catch this side down. Now, say in factories where they create garments like this, they have precision machinery, and it stitches it perfectly. Okay, when we do it, what we end up with, it's kind of like it looks good in some places, and in some places it might be too high or too low, and it doesn't look great. Okay. Now, for the sake of time right now, I'm not going to do this by hand. I'll do it by machine. So I'm just going to pin it down, and you will see when it's done, it's not going to look perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but we'll do our best. So pin it in, and when you're pinning it, don't pull this, okay? It should lie very, just naturally. Okay. So let's go ahead and stitch in the ditch. If you're uncomfortable stitching in the ditch, you can just stitch right on the edge of the waistband too. I will do my best to stitch in the ditch. Of course, it's black thread I'm using, so any mistakes I make, you'll see. There we go. So here it is, all sewn together. That's the front of it, pockets, and then the back. Open it up. Okay, now you can see what I'm talking about, how it's hard. See, I didn't catch right there. And then this looks good, but that missed. A little bit uneven. See how it gets very uneven here. Here it looks good, and then not perfect there. So really, you should do it by hand if you can. Okay, but there we go. And this is what the inside looks like. Okay, the fly front. And you can see just chopping off the zipper worked no problem. The length of it. Oops. And then one thing that you will not see in the demo, but you do, is you put your buttonhole here and then your button there. Or you could do a skirt hook and eye, the hook and bar basically. But that's it. That's how we've now added a fly front, set in pockets, and a waistband to the pants.